All right. Next on the chopping block, Dark. What do you have for us?
I have a series whose name I will not read out the full of because it's very long. Um,
Yes, this
I'll
is
give
I
you
can read it out for you here.
Sayaku Tamer.
Yes, this is the weakest
Oh,
tamer
damn.
began a journey to pick up trash, also known in Japanese as 最弱テーマはゴミ拾いの旅を始めました. So this is a light novel or this web novel original, right? Probably. Naruto,
Um,
probably.
More than
no, this is
likely.
a light novel. This is a light
That's
novel
alright.
Oh, this
original,
is
unless it
started out as a
started
light
as
novel.
like a web
Okay.
novel, and then I don't know.
No,
Manga
it
says
started
web
as web
novel,
novel
so
on Shousetsuka ni Naro initially,
okay.
and then it went into light novel. Yes,
The usual
Yeah.
course for
the
So,
the
mangas.
usual. Yes.
yeah, this is a little show about I forget. I believe she is 8 at the start of the series, 8 years old. 8-year-old girl in a village.
Everybody's
And
favorite.
yeah, she is born in a world where you're basically given essentially like RPG style skills based on and your like levels are based on stars. And the gods like sort of ordain you with those.
Mm,
So you could have like, up to like 4 stars in defense, like swordsmanship, something like that. And it kind of predetermines what like you're gonna do with yourself, and how skilled you are in combat. Now you can make up for that by training in a way, like someone with a 1 star defense skill could like overcompensate by training in defense or like evasion and still beat someone uh who has like 3 stars in defense or something, right? Like it's
mhm.
not a predetermined thing as far as outcomes go. However, this girl was born, I believe it is on, I forget what birthday it is, to be honest with you. But on a certain birthday, everyone gets a um, certain amount of stars, right? Like their stars are revealed essentially.
Okay.
And she was revealed to have no stars. She is a no star tamer. And that is
Oh no.
supposed to be essentially, um, it's not so much
Wait,
that it
this is
brings
just like soul
misfortune.
leveling.
Yeah. It's not so much that it
Wow.
brings misfortune, but people like, are superstitious about it and think it does because, that is a sign that the gods have not like chosen you for anything, essentially.
Mm,
Right? Like they have essentially think it's like the gods have looked down on you. Um, and so she essentially gets chased out of her village because the village chief is an asshole, and conspires against her and this what do you call it? This fortune teller who she's friends with, in order to like, I guess like gain more prominence, and just have people back him for village chief. And yeah, so she gets chased out by them. Her own family essentially abandons her. And the fortune teller essentially sets her off on the journey to get to the capital city, and try and like find a place where she belongs. Um, Long story short, the world was not always based on stars, and that is like a not a relatively new thing, but it is something that is like essentially unnatural to the world. No one really knows why. No one really remembers that being the case, but the fortune teller does. Um, and yeah, so that kind of is what kicks off the whole like journey of our now main character Ivy trying to find out where to essentially live and friends and where she belongs. Um, and along the way, she finds a slime that is extremely rare, but extremely weak. They are named a like disintegrating slimes. They only live for about a day or less, and they can even be popped by like the wind.
mhm.
Um, and so upon seeing this slime, she tames it because since it's so weak, her 0 star taming skill can actually tame it. So she tames it, names it Sora, and it's kind of like this really somber experience of like, this thing is going to probably die before the next morning.
Hmm.
Um, and so she takes care of it, protects it, and then lo and behold, the next morning, he does not disappear.
Gasp.
And then yeah, and so this slime turns out to be or rather she names it Sora. And that kind of winds up being the series like co-companion. Though it doesn't like actually speak, but it does start having like, vocalization. Um and this slime like feeds on what do you call it, health potions. And so basically it turns into her dumpster diving for health potions for a while, and then meeting people along the way while she's traveling to the capital city. Not going to get into every arc from there, but this turns into like a mini arcs series, essentially, of her
Okay.
getting to each city, meeting some people. Something like, she'll get tangled up into some sort of, not, it doesn't always have to be a conspiracy, but it could be like a larger sort of group, or just general ne'er do wells. And the local, essentially like the local people, supporting her along the way. And
So
yeah, this is
So how
a
strong
very
is she,
cozy
Dark?
series. Very
this is yeah.
she is very weak. She's the weakest. However, what this series likes to do is drive home the idea of connections, and sort of her gathering up connections with extremely strong people. Sora itself,
How does she
himself
make these
becomes pretty
connections
strong.
here?
Just pretty much happenstance, right? Like on her travels. This series kind of does. I wouldn't really call it like a trope, but I mean, it is the thing of like, she's chased out of her original town for not having stars. Yet that was egged on mostly by the um, village chief. And now some of the people she meets wind up, they don't find out she has no stars, but they, make the assumption that she is either a 1 star or just like exceedingly weak. But, like she winds up meeting like good people that don't
Yeah, because
really
my
mind
my
that.
my thing is that a lot of the times in these sorts of like isekai series, especially the ones that are like power fantasy series, right? For example, these sorts of connections are made in a very standard structure, right? And this structure will be the guy comes across and initially the acquaintance or or the stranger meets the protagonist and doesn't really trust them and or goes like, "Oh, what's this guy all about?" And then the protagonist does something cool or helps them out or something like that, and the stranger slash soon to be sidekick says, "Oh," or thinks to themselves, "Oh, this guy is actually really good and nice, and they use their power for good, and so I want to be with them," and they kind of tag along, and that's sort of the general flow of things. But obviously, this is not as really possible with this character, right? Because she's not
Yeah, I
that
mean it
strong.
does it
So
yeah,
how does this structure
it
work?
does the sort of, in, well, not inverse, but like um this is an 8-year-old girl traveling alone,
Right? Yeah, exactly.
though
That's why I'm
posing
thinking.
as a
Yeah.
boy. So it's like her connections are like, the captain of like one of the towns, like guardsman captain of one of the of
Hmm.
one of like the city slash town she's going through. And he's like a big deal, but like he is a gruffer, like a gruffer guy,
Hmm.
voiced by Miyake Kenta.
No, nice, nice,
He's
nice.
doing a very gravelly voice. But he's like a nice, like a nice guy with a like sort of scarier appearance, because he's a big guy with like a scar on his face,
You'd
and
say
an
he's a
intense look.
guard?
Yeah, he's a
Does
captain.
he have? Is
He's
there
like the
anything
captain.
wrong with his knee?
No, no.
I
Because
just I kind of am curious about how the cast structure or the cast interactive structure is formulated in terms of uh, what I mean is that so is this like if it's I uchi musume, is this like an uchi musume kind of thing where everybody's kind of surrounding this little kid kind of structure going on? It's a little bit more of like a weird
Yes.
reverse harem, but with like a lead structure or lolly structure, or like what's going on here
No,
with
it
with
is
the network? Yeah,
literally like
uchi musume.
this character is coming in and this is now everyone's either stand-in daughter slash like younger sibling.
Okay,
Um
okay, 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 okay.
yeah, like they
And
are
is
it
the
turns into like a lot of the adventurers being like exceptionally like protective, and more so a case of Ivy trying to overcome like, her trauma with her village and like learning to trust them, to
uh,
tell them about like Sora, to tell them about, her being like starless, and things like that. And it's a lot of flashbacks to the fortune teller, um, sort of giving her this advice, and the fortune teller seeming to be a more, not an omnipotent character, but like a much more um semi like a fortune teller like can has like preordained essentially the right path for her to walk, to find like, a good life in this world. The fortune
I'm
teller may also be like a semi omnipotent like being, because like she technically like dies, um
uh,
but this series is technically an isekai. um I
yeah.
didn't mention that because it's borderline irrelevant, and the only thing that the isekai plays into is Ivy every now and then will hear like these chimes, and it's implied that like her past self is like personality is like chiming in with like some knowledge that may or may not even be useful. Um it is a much looser isekai. It's almost like a even looser bookworm, in the sense that like this is very much its own person, and there is like a sort of like voice looking in, um but isn't in like direct control in that sense. um but yeah, I mean, it adds a little bit, but it doesn't really do a whole lot, and it's not like really in your face, so it's pretty much fine. It doesn't it what I do like appreciate about it is it doesn't really do anything like, oh, this is like a video game or something, or an RPG. It kind of leaves the world to itself, and then the isekai like person or personality is, like I said, like literally just chimes when it is going to chime in, and it kind of just sort of it might compare things to either like the other world, or just give like greater context to like certain people's behavior sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's just
also
like
curious about
a head start in knowledge for Ivy, essentially, more or less.
I'm also curious about the general structure of the adventures, where it's like, is it real? Is it like mini arcs of dungeon crawling, or is there like a specific foreshadowing that it's like a
No,
mini arc, but with like a foreshadowing where she has to go out and she's kind of or being led to aim for defeating this kind of like mid boss or boss-ish character,
no,
or
there's
is
no
it like
actual. When I say adventurers, I mean like they are adventurers in the sense of like, yeah, there are like some fucking ogres we have to kill, like
so it's more like a slow
outside. There
life
are
kind of
no
thing
dungeons. Yeah,
almost?
yeah, it is
Yeah,
very
yeah,
slow
okay,
life. They are like, we're
okay,
adventurers.
okay,
We
okay,
like
okay.
run around,
I
we
just want
kill
to
monsters for
understand the
people.
tone. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And
Okay. Okay.
she gets entangled with like, obviously like the guards first, and then the larger like the adventurer group second, but they are situated like in a town, in a large
Okay.
like
Okay. Okay.
city. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, like her reason for sticking with the adventurers is that, they have their own like encampment site within the cities that are just like, here's like an open like field, within the city that all the adventurers have like hang out in, because it's like, they're not gonna, they can't really use like inns because obviously they're adventurers. They have a shitload of gear. So they set up camps, and that's kind of like the most inconspicuous place she could be. Um, but yeah, so it is a very slow life, like cozy series with like, there are arcs where like, oh man, there's like a evil organization, and Ivy gets tangled up in it, and winds up like assisting, the overthrowing of said organization. I won't give away too much or how. But yeah, it's kind of a lot of that. It's a lot of like I said, the main crux is Ivy sort of overcoming trust issues at the end of the day, and um learning to sort of put that forward to people, and that like not everyone is like, most people in the world are going to be like just fine, and not these like superstitious freaks that were in your main town, like in your original town.
Right.
um
But Dark, why does she not just get stronger?
because you're not allowed to, because the gods are pieces of shit. uh
But what if
and
zero
I
stars
don't
means she has
think,
unlimited potential?
yeah,
She
I
doesn't have a
really
star
doubt that's
cap.
the case. Like I said, the fortune teller described like, we used to she basically just says, we used to work together, and like the whole like starless thing was nothing, like it was meaningless. There was no like stars that anyone had. If you needed to fight a monster, everyone had to band together to fight a monster. There was no thing of like, oh, this person has this skill, so have to send them out. So I do wonder if this series, as it goes longer, gets into a little bit more of that. I think that would be a little bit interesting as like sort of a background aspect. Um, but overall, I really enjoy this series. I think it's very cozy. I think it's very fun. Um, I would highly recommend like watching the OP and EDs, because they are very, very cheesy. Um, and the opening is like a character, a CV opening. And yeah, like very, very literal songs, very like, again, like lyric, like very literal, like lyrically.
Mhm.
But very cute, very nice.
Did
um
you? Oh yeah, Studio Kid is like
yeah,
not a
Studio
company that
Masket,
I've
they are new.
heard.
They are completely new for the most part. As far as their credentials, they have done like music videos.
Yeah,
Other
they've
than
done like
this,
second animation for a couple of series here and there, but I
yeah, yeah.
think
As far
they're
as like what
in
they've
terms of like
led is
yeah,
literally like
yeah,
they've
yeah.
led music
That's the thing.
videos.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
um, so this is a very nice
Yeah, this is
first
their
showing, I would
literally their
say.
first like yeah, this is their first
Yeah,
main.
visually, this is not like the prettiest series in the world, but it is also
Hmm.
not ugly. It is a very standard, I would say like
Yeah,
lower end budget series,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it looks
That's
good for what it
important.
is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, yeah, and I don't think it's too bad. It's not like I think they do a lot with it. I don't think it like falls apart at all, or like, you're like, damn, there's like no motion here or anything. So I think they
Hmm.
do a very good job on that budget. Um and I would say one of my highlights for this series too is probably that Ivy is being voiced by Suzuki Aina, um,
Hmm.
who I know most prevalently, and everyone should, because newer Love Live, ew, yucky, gross. Who cares? Who cares about those newer Love Live characters? The real shit is, this is Joshing Chan's voice actress, okay? Um,
Yes.
and she's doing a killer job, because, as I had said earlier, Ivy is disguising herself, or like, not disguising herself, but trying to pass herself as a boy,
Hmm.
because typically, like, don't want to be a young girl traveling alone,
Yes.
regardless of fantasy location or not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's really interesting is Suzuki Aina is doing a like huskier voice for that in that sense, a much more
Oh,
tomboyish
okay,
voice.
okay, okay, okay,
However,
okay.
she is not, as she drops it as Ivy gains more trust in people. She slowly starts to drop it more and more around like
Mhm.
familiar people, and internally, she drops that like tomboyish
The
voice.
Japanese kind of, yeah.
So I think that very very
Yeah,
that
taking
she
care
did.
of that like little detail for
Yeah,
sure.
it's really really nice. Whereas like they really didn't need to
Mhm.
do it, or they could have kept it up the entire time for the
Yeah,
directing, like right, like even internally. But the fact that they specifically separated that was very nice.
yeah. But yeah, Suzuki Aina, for those of you who don't know, again, did do Justin Chan main character, and her probably kind of most famous role is doing Oharamari, which was one of the main sort of idols, I guess, for Love Live Sunshine, for of course the second generation of the Love Live 2D idol kind of franchise, right? So she's most famous for that, but yeah, does obviously a very good job in here as well, and I think in general, I think Saija Tamer had a pretty decent list, right? Suzuki Aina here. Let me see. Tamara Mutsuki, Miyake Kenta, I think, as you said. Toriumi Kosuke is pretty good too. Namikawa Daisuke, Tomoaki Maeno, yeah, pretty. Morikawa Toshiyuki, yeah, a decent number of known, like, pretty well known main male voice actors as well here. So, pretty good list. So,
Yeah, overall the voice
uh,
work is very very good. Like I said, the music is also very nice. The actual OST itself. I forget. Let me look up. I had the director pulled up and I why like why I did that. Remember this was oh yeah, so this has like co-directors and one of the directors has done like, a lot of episode directing like um however, I believe there was what was the other co-director is Yamauchi Shigeyasu.
yes,
Um
he is a very prolific director.
yeah, so like kind of insane that he's credited on this. Just kind of out of nowhere. So
Yeah,
this is
by the way,
probably
if you
like
don't know who Yamauchi is, he's been, directors for a lot of the Dragon Ball Z movies, especially like, like the Brawly Dragon Ball Z Brawly movies and stuff like that. He did a lot of the Saint Seiya movies, stuff like that. A
yeah,
lot of the
Caishin
older,
Sins.
yeah. So pretty big, or
But have you seen the
pretty
new
prolific.
Saint Seiya movie?
I
I'm
have
I
sorry,
haven't
Knights
seen
not.
of the
one.
Zodiac.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he's the chief director in this.
Yeah.
And so the other director, yeah, like, damn, crazy start. I think the directing
Yeah.
in this is quite good. I think the pacing of the series is quite good,
Mhm.
flowing
Is
very
this 12
well.
episodes here?
Yes, it is.
And
I will say,
is it wrapping up here,
yeah,
or is it like
It's
okay?
wrapping up with like a well, no, I mean it's wrapping up in the sense of like it's finishing the arc that Ivy's currently on. It is not getting
Right,
to the
right.
end of the series, like even remotely close.
Yeah.
Um,
Obviously there's a lot of material there as
yeah,
well, but
so I would hope that this gets more because
mhm.
it's quite fun. But yeah,
All right. Uh
not a ton else. I would say if you like some cheap like feel good stuff, uh, then I would say give this a look.
all right. Mal rating, please.
I think the mall rating is currently like pretty fair. I would say I would round
Mhm.
it off and give it a
Oh,
7.5. The current
yeah,
mal
right
rating
now it's
is
7.44, yeah.
7.44. Yeah,
Yes.
I would say like a 7.5 would be pretty fair for this series. For me, I quite like it a lot. I think the story is nice. I think a lot of character interactions are great. I would say where it falls, where it like has its missteps, is with the like budget and art.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like this would be if this had like stellar like killer art, this for me would be like perfect essentially.
Okay.
As like a very very fun.
Yeah, it seems like a very because the thing is that this treads a. It doesn't seem like it, but to me, it treads a very careful balance. Like it mixes and balances the whole. It does the isekai stuff or power, not like soul life kind of stuff, but while also trying to kind of pull in the people who kind of watch stuff like Bofuri or like strong female protagonists doing stuff, but then at the same time it's also trying to pull in like the Uchi Musume crowd. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's like trying to do that, but like it's a little bit harder to do that than expected because again, at the end of the day, um, your protagonist is a little girl. It's like a little, especially like not a strong girl. It's not like one of those, it's like villain like cheat heroines where it's like, oh, I get like infinite money or like I get teleportation or whatever it is, right? And even in some of the other little girl protagonist series, uh, I guess one of the more famous ones being Bookworm, right? Like Bookworm, her power, I mean, like obviously physically she was not powerful, but like she had a lot of power in the whole like, using the Japanese knowledge and doing that sort of stuff, right?
yeah,
Um, so she was quite capable there, but obviously this is like a different angle, right? So I think this series holds a very nice balance, while kind of striking its unique perspective on this sort of genre, if that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And like I said, like it's just a very very cozy time.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dark. And again, this was the. Let me read this. This is Sage, the weakest tamer began a journey to pick up trash, also known as 最弱テーマはゴミ拾いの旅を始めました。
So,
Excuse
in
me.
terms of weakest tamer, how weak is she? Is she the strongest of the weakest tamers, or the
The
weakest?
strongest of the weakest. The
I mean,
strongest of the
she's
weakest users. Yeah.
technically like she's probably. I mean, it depends. Like we've really only been introduced to like one other tamer in this series, so like the problem is that other tamer like also had slimes, and those slimes could like have a special ability of like being particularly able to devour weaponry and
Hmm.
dispose of trash. So the problem is like is there someone who can like tame a fucking dragon? Then like sure. But I without
How
getting
how
into
strong are
spoilers,
how strong is her
Sora is
slime?
pretty strong for what his abilities wind up being. So I'm
So you're
not
saying it's
going
a
to
strong
spoil
slime?
anything, but he is quite the party
So
member
she's
in
not
that
weak at
sense.
all. What a lie!
Well, I mean, she is. It's just that
Yeah.
she was able
She
to
has some
build up
growth,
the
but
slime,
still,
and
yeah.
But like,
yeah.
Yeah.
how weak are we talking? Are we talking like average 8-year-old weak? Or
Well,
like,
again, like yeah, but also again, like I said, like as a 0-star tamer, the only thing she could tame was literally a slime that would normally just get like popped by wind, right? Like, like
if she was a
that
Dragon's
was the
Dogma character, what would she? How would she be like a throwable pawn or what?
she wouldn't even be she would be an NPC. That was it.
Yeah.
Like she wouldn't be a
Man,
person
do you
walking
remember
around.
the romance system in Dragon's Dogma 1? That was whack. It
Yeah.
was it
Anyway.
was literally the person you talk to the most becomes your beloved at the end. And for
Oh
most people it
yeah.
was the shop NPC. I was like, ugh, good stuff.
Oh
Good game.
yeah. Like I said, would
Anyways.
highly recommend that. Also, just to reiterate, one of the highlights I would say, check out the OP and ED. The ED
Yep.
especially has some pretty nice art. So
But is it better than
All right.
Creepy Nuts?
No.
All right. Well,
Creepiness
yeah,
is
yeah.
Creepiness's new song.
Yeah.
Like I said, very literal songs. Very like
Yes.
corny songs. So
Yeah. Anyways, we do have to wrap up. Thank you very much, Dark. Again, if you do like these sorts of soul life stuff, but with like very nicely done a variant of it, please do check it out.